Let's clarify a word we'll be using a lot in this episode. That word is God. Those of you who have had a similar religious upbringing to my own might imagine God as a bearded man in long white robes, sitting on a throne somewhere in heaven, high above and apart from us. Other faiths conceptualize God differently. Now, please excuse the limitations of the English language. My gender-specific reference to God as He is due to the fact that this language has no appropriate word for a sentient being that is neither male nor female. No offense is intended to anyone who might object or prefer to call God she. Much blood has been shed quarreling about whose God is the true God and what religion is the right religion. To me, it looks like children fighting in a schoolyard, pointless and infantile. If only people would look inwardly for the divine, instead of searching outside of themselves. God speaks inside of you with the power and authority to remake and revitalize your life and circumstances. So are we talking about some New Age religion here? No, not at all. The I am that I am, that is to say, the God within you, is not about religion at all. In fact, let this point be perfectly clear. In this series, whenever I use the word God, do not imagine I am referring to conventional notions of God and religion. The God I speak of is the I am, that is to say, the being that speaks whenever you or I say, I am. Maybe the hardest thing for most people to accept is this concept of the supreme being that not only exists within you, but a supreme being that actually is you. Let's be perfectly honest here, folks. On the surface of it, the very notion that humans and God are one and the same thing is ridiculous on a grand scale. It doesn't even make sense, does it? For example, ask me what is happening this very moment in the life of a total stranger halfway around the world. I have no clue. Ask me why I poured salt into my coffee instead of sugar. I don't know. It was a mistake. One of many mistakes I make every day. Ask me why I invested money in a company whose shares then proceeded to lose value instead of gain it. Obviously, had I known that would happen, I would have made another choice. If I'm really the supreme being, why will this body I am using right now eventually grow old and die? I could go on asking common sense questions, and none of the answers to those questions would suggest that I am God in the flesh. There's yet another problem with the I am God theory. When I say I am God, does that mean I am your God? Should I expect you to worship me? Are we really trying to say that one human being is God and all the rest are not? Obviously, we are not saying that, not even close. We'll get to these questions in a few moments. The concept of the supreme being dwelling within everything and everyone is an extremely ancient philosophy. It is also true that some of the greatest minds throughout the ages, and right up to our own era, believe that not only is this concept not blasphemy, it is rather logical and intelligent, not to mention that it is in line with the latest research in quantum physics. It occurred to me that it might be very helpful to offer a simple analogy or illustration to make sense of what might otherwise be a bit difficult to explain. We all played make-believe games as children. Do you remember Play-Doh? It's great fun to play with. I remember as a child, I would rip off a hunk of Play-Doh and form it into a dinosaur. Out of the same lump of clay, I ripped off another piece and made that one into a man. And still another piece became a car or a cat or anything I wanted. There was no limit to what you can make from this stuff. I can't tell you how many hours of pleasure it gave me to make these things and indulge my imagination. Afterward, I'd smush them all back into the big lump and start all over again, and again, and again. At one of my workshops not too long ago, I handed out Play-Doh modeling clay to everyone in the audience and told them to shape it into anything they liked. Every single person in the audience was transformed into a child before my very eyes, or so it seemed to me. Everyone slipped into a silent reverie and made these beautifully detailed creations. When they handed them back, every item was different, but all made from the same thing. Let's imagine that the Play-Doh in our analogy here is the mysterious stuff from which all things are made, literally the building blocks of matter itself. This mysterious stuff can be shaped into any form the mind can conceive. Now let us call this mysterious substance, this clay, let's call it God. So, the dinosaur is God, the man is God, the car is God, the cat is God. In short, everything is made from the same substance, the same energy, the same fundamental essence we call Play-Doh, also known as God. Now, our analogy needs one more element to be of service to us. In the beginning, the creative element we are calling God, for the purpose of this illustration, couldn't go to a store to buy cosmic Play-Doh to make all that is created. No such other thing existed. Instead, God made all that is from himself by becoming whatever he created. In our illustration, the creator is Play-Doh, and from himself he created the dinosaur, the man, the car, the cat, and everything that was made. Now let us tie all this together in a nice little bow and leave you with something to think about until the 10th and final episode in this series. God, being a self-aware being, making all things from himself, decides to form a being that is also self-aware like God is. Let us call this newly created being Mr. Play-Doh. Mr. Play-Doh is a smart guy, and after a great deal of deep meditation and introspection, a magnificent thought occurs to him. He is so excited he dashes out of his Play-Doh house, down his Play-Doh driveway, to his Play-Doh street, lined with Play-Doh trees and Play-Doh people walking their Play-Doh dogs. And remembering who and what he is made from, he boldly declares, "I am Play-Doh," or in other words, "I am God." But Mr. Play-Doh doesn't stop there. He goes and tells his best friend about this marvelous epiphany. But after he does so, Mr. Play-Doh notices that his Play-Doh friend has an odd expression on his face. So his friend says, "Well, who died and made you God?" Mr. Play-Doh replies, No, you don't understand. It's not just me. You are God too. In fact, everything is God." Well, his friends and neighbors need more time to let this new idea sink in. In the meanwhile, Mr. Play-Doh understands that being God also means that, like God, he too has the power to form things from himself, just like God does. He knows this for sure because he discovered that he and God are one and the same thing. This begins a glorious journey of self-discovery for Mr. Play-Doh. You see, my friends, since you find yourself in the form of a man or a woman, you will display certain limitations of the character that you are playing in this life. You appear to forget things. You make mistakes every day. You have unforeseen accidents. And once you are done your true essence, God, the only being in existence, cosmic consciousness, life force, universal source power, or whatever name you choose to call it, smooshes you into something brand new. Due to the temporary ignorance that is intentionally built into the character you are currently playing, you have been calling this divine recycling process death. Not to put too fine a point on it, but in actual truth, since God cannot ever die, neither can you. You can retire your character role and exit stage left, but you never die, although some of you will put on a masterfully dramatic death scene. In actuality, you simply go on to some other adventure of your choice. There is no life after death. There is only life after life. All I can say, folks, is that it is good to be God. Our next session is also the last in this series. Since there will be detailed instructions on how to operate your life as a powerful creator, the I am, that is your true essence, it will be longer than previous episodes. This last episode completes your basic training. There is much more to learn and truly wonderful things on the horizon for you. But this series will serve you well if you take heed and make this philosophy your own. Until next time, this is Q, wishing you wealth, health, and happiness.